Welcome to Andrea Lake 101, the making of a billionaire. You guys, let's dive into Sticker Wars. Wowza, so much has happened. We met the showrunner that's going to produce the TV show. Yes, please. All of the yes. I will tell you how that story happened. And made so many deals. We went to Summit Detroit, myself and our Chief Operations Officer, Brian Burling. And I am going to give you guys like the dive deep inside scoop of what happens at like sort of a mysterious business event like that. We're also going to talk about the affiliate program that we put together, the Sticker Towers, going to San Diego Pride Fest next month, getting ready for that, getting the booth ready. So much is going on so quickly, you guys. Today is June 17th of 2025, and we are on month 22. We're at the beginning of month 22 of me working all day, every day for 27 months to save my companies. Now, in the first year, we increased our sales by 482%. And it looks like this year we are on track to also increase our sales by about 500%. How the fuck do we do that? Really good question. So I've been super transparent up to this point with our strategy. And in this last month, everything has taken off. As I told you guys, I am just on the conference tour. So I did the Milken Institute, then I just went to Summit Series. I am going to Renaissance Weekend next, and on and on and on and on. Because at all of these conferences, I meet people who need stickers. I meet people who need lots of stickers at these conferences. And at Summit, it's my favorite community I've ever been involved in. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about Summit Series and about some of the frickin' rainbows and fairy dust and magic that happened at Summit Detroit this year. So I hope you are having a fabulous Friday night, or whenever you have a chance to catch the episode, grab a glass of wine, sit back, get some popcorn, and I will bring all of the tea. So I get invited to go to Summit Detroit while I am at Summit Cabo last November. And look, you guys, I am still not good about posting on social. There is a reason that I don't have a lot of followers yet. We haven't gotten consistent with any of that because I have been so freaking busy doing everything else. But now Jenny Le Armendaris is going to be coming right next to me as my chief of staff, my help me get shit done chick. And we brought in a new woman and one of Jenny's best friends, Alex, who is coming in and getting trained up with all things sticker junkie, and hopefully will step in to an office manager position when the time is right. That is the hope. We will be moving Mads and Wendy way over into sales with me as we roll out the Towers program, and we're kind of figuring out what all of that looks like right now. We hired Kiana into production as Chance is moving over more and more to getting booths built. And it's exciting to see the staff expanding again, to see everything coming together again. But we still, on a day-to-day basis in the office, it kind of is a slog. And then I leave for a week or two at a time and go to these different conferences. Sometimes they're just a weekend, sometimes they're a long time, and come back with like this ridiculous, amazing stories of like, how did we meet this badass producer? Okay, let me set the scene. So I am at Summit Detroit. And when they first sent out the invitations, like I said, I was in Cabo. I bought it the first day that it went for sale, the second that it went for sale, because I love this community. And I actually had not gone to any of their city takeovers. I've been to tons of different events, but what they do is they take over multiple different city blocks. They reserve the restaurants for private meals. They reserve a couple of the hotels, the whole entire hotel with room blocks. There are just different activations, different events, different speakers, different cool things in all these different areas of downtown. It was so cool. And I originally went to Detroit in 2013 to an event that someone in Summit held called Another Detroit. So I had toured what was going to happen with the renovation of the downtown spaces, the rebuilding of a lot of buildings, some of which had been burned down, some of which had been abandoned, and everything that Detroit was doing with urban farming, which by the fucking way is very cool. And so it had been about, 12 or 13 years since I've been back to Detroit. And I was so impressed with the architecture, with the renovation of the downtown, with the renovation of a lot of these hotels that have been abandoned or really run down, and these new buildings that are coming out. So we got to spend a lot of time in a new conference hall called the Hudson Building. We were like the first people ever to use it. And they bring in amazing speakers at Summit. So, like, Scott Galloway was speaking there. I went to an amazing panel with Eric Huberman and Jason Halpert about psychopathy and how, like, a lot of the traits carry over between CEOs and psychopaths. Fascinating. There was incredible comedy. They rented out this huge hall that had, like, the Whalers playing the music. Ben Glebe, who is hilarious. Most of you have seen him on different shows over the years. He's on Young Turks a lot. He's on a bunch of different shows and has his own comedy specials on Netflix and is a good friend of mine. So there's a story there. So I'm going to tell you the whole flow of everything that happened at Summit Detroit. And the takeaway lessons on this are events like this are where business gets done. It used to sort of just be on the golf course or like over martinis, maybe at a strip club back in the day. But now there's these super fun, very cool events. And the best way that I could describe Summit Series is like it's a cross between Burning Man meets TED. And so there's lots of cool speakers. There's lots of cool stuff to watch. There's really cool activations. There's like deep dive connecting sort of events that go on there in the midst of a lot of really hardcore business talk. I've been in this community since 2010. And so I know a lot of people in this community. So when I go and there's, a couple thousand of us, I probably know anywhere between 40 and 50% of the attendees, some of them obviously way better than others. So here is a list of all of the serendipity and magic that happened there. I reconnected with one of my amazing girlfriends. Sarah Haywood is the roller skate DJ. So you might see her spinning on Necker Island. She's a resident DJ at the Ritz-Carlton in Maui. She flies all over the world and DJs, and she DJ'd a couple sets at Summit. And because we are super homies, was staying kind of far away. So I gave her a key to my room and so that we could just connect and she didn't have to run back to change outfits for the nighttime. And she also is one of our affiliates and she closed a huge deal for us. I do not have permission to say which deal it was, but within Sticker Junkie, we have rolled out this incredibly generous affiliate program to all of my incredibly well-connected friends, where we pay them a large percentage for a couple of years on any new sales that they bring us. So as a result, we have a whole lot of people who are working with us to become affiliates and turn over some really great connections to us. And then I just go talk to them and close the deal. Luckily, I am really good at that. So as I'm diving back into all these business groups, many of which I've been in for decades, but some of which I hadn't been to for a while. And Summit is the only one that I've been going to consistently. I go every year to something from Summit, sometimes multiple times a year if they have more events in a year. It's really been a marker for me, having gone to Summit at Sea in April of 2024, to Cabo in November of 24, and now to Summit Detroit in June of 2025, to sort of see myself rediscovering myself and regaining my confidence because, man, losing everything, whoo, it didn't make me lose my confidence. I already had lost my confidence way before I lost everything. But really getting to the bottom of the barrel and digging myself out is making me rediscover myself in a new way. And the level of confidence and sure-footedness and understanding that I am getting in business again, it is astounding. It is astounding even for me to watch. Like, I have to do legal rewatches of this podcast. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, who the fuck is that chick? But not really. When I was a little kid and I was on the cover, I'm calling myself a little kid at 32, which I know how that sounds, but whatever. I was on the cover of magazines and I'd be like, I want to be her one day when I grow up. And I was so disconnected from that because I was so in my own head about my behind the scenes that I never, ever took the credit, allowed myself to experience the pride of the highlight reel. I would always just be explaining, well, I'm not really this great because I made this bad decision over here. And the degree to which I did not celebrate my accomplishments when I was younger and was so fucking profoundly accomplished. And the degree to which I was hard on myself for such a long time is astounding. And now that I am like coming back into myself and meeting with all of my friends who have started, billion-dollar companies, multiple hundreds of million-dollar companies, just killing it at life, or like Ben as a very successful comedian, or people who are just like crushing it in their career, I'm sort of remembering like, yeah, me too. Me too. Like, I just experienced a year where we had 182% growth. And this year we're going to have about 500% growth again. But something about the way that I had been being, I was like really beating myself up that we haven't like hit the 500% again this year because we haven't. Our sales have been super flat. They've been flat for months now, regardless of how much we're doing and how much we're throwing out there. Now, there is something to be said about the economy, people just spending a little bit less right now. That is true. We're gaining the correct amount of new business. But right now, we just closed so many major deals, and we're in the process of setting up the customized back page for them, getting distributed throughout their whole organization. I fucking cannot wait to see how many dollars that brings in the door. And so I know I have been sounding crazy to my staff and just saying to all of my coworkers, like, I'm pretty sure we're going to double our sales, legitimately double our sales in July. Why do I think that? Good question. Because we closed quite a few humongous institutions that we are currently right now setting up within our private Backpage system. We also closed a couple of incredible affiliate deals obviously through DJ Sarah Haywood, check out her Instagram, as well as through a couple other friends of mine who just introduced me to some of their homies who have huge companies. One of my friends just sent me a client that I'm pretty sure is going to spend 200 grand next year in stickers. So that guy is going to make $20,000 in commissions off of that. I'm like, yes, please. Mommy says thank you. And guess what happens when he starts getting those commission checks? He's going to fucking introduce me to every single person he knows. And that is why we have such a generous affiliate program that's in our beta right now, because we just want those big, huge, big dollar sales. And we're so thankful. As I last talked on the last Sticker Wars podcast episode, we are closing tons of government deals right now too in the state of California, which is where we are domiciled. Like I mentioned before, states are really incentivized to spend money with businesses that operate in their states. All states work that way. California is not unique in this. And so I'm so excited to be integrating more deeply within California and getting invited even into local events to go and speak with different business owners and different government departments within California. But let's go right now back to Detroit. As I'm regaining my confidence and regaining my footing, and I've got this new wardrobe, so I just look super fantastic, and I'm just feeling full of myself. And the ease with which it's almost like I forgot how easily I can make new connections at something like this. And it's not forced. It's not fucking fake. It's a real thing. I really do like people. And I love being alone and I love being with people. So I truly am a person that's like an extrovert and an introvert both. For me to be so quiet and heads down and working for the last 22 months and then to get unleashed into an event with like all of my peer group, it is so much fun. So I ran back into a friend of mine who I met on the airplane on the way back from Cabo, who I talked about at the time, has a Fortune 500, buys tons of stickers, has the type of business that would use stickers, and just stuff happened between here and there, and we never closed the deal. And then I ran into one of his board members at breakfast using something that I use very often at these events. I am one of the older people that goes to Summit. So if I see someone at a buffet line that is my age or older at Summit, I immediately beeline over there, because the older you are getting invited to something like Summit Series, the more successful you are, period. Because in general, the word is kind of getting out in the younger tech community about an event like that. So the older person in the room is always just going to be the biggest baller in the room. That just is what is. So I go up to this guy about my age, maybe like 10 years older than me, and he's making his breakfast plate, and I just am immediately making him laugh. And then I sit down and I talk, oh, why are you here? Oh, I'm here because I'm on the board of such and such big ass company. And I go, oh my God, my friend is the CEO of that company. He's like, really? I said, yeah, I thought he couldn't make it, or because he'd given some indicator that my friend was there. I thought he couldn't make it. I just checked in with him like a couple weeks ago to see if he's going to come. Oh, super last minute decision, blah, blah, blah. So I immediately am thrilled. The dude that's on the board and I just get along like fucking peas and carrots. He used to be like in a punk rock band. He's super fucking smart, done amazingly well in business, phenomenally talented musician. It just is the type of person that I just would get along with. And we do. And we're making each other crack up over breakfast. And then in all these serendipitous ways, I ran into my friend. Now remember, there's a few thousand people at this event, so you're not necessarily going to run into people again if you don't coordinate it. But I did run into my friend. I ran into him and we ended up just completely reconnecting. We ended up hanging out that night at this special dinner event that they had for a little bit. And then all of us got together the next morning for breakfast. And I would just so direct with him and making him laugh. And I was like, look, I am a baller on a budget right now. I need you to actually close with me. I need such and such company, big fucking ass, multiple hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollar company to immediately start buying stickers from me like yesterday, last week. I need the money last month. So if you could start buying from me 2 fucking day, that would be incredible. But it's not just that I said it like that. I said that. And so he started laughing. We're all laughing. And I'm like, no, but for real. Long story short, I just texted him right before I'm recording this podcast to say, hey, can we swing by some samples for you guys? Like, I'd love to say hello. I'd love to recheck out your corporate office and get introduced to the marketing director so that we can speed this along. And lo and behold, that right there could handle all of our growth for July if we get integrated properly within their whole system. As we're moving forward, even though the numbers are a little bit flat with us right now, the promise of the future is not just like there in some nebulous way. We're closing the deals right now. We're setting up the web pages right now. And as soon as we set up a web page like that, we distribute it to every buyer within their corporation, and all of it's private. These are private customized back pages. These aren't things that are accessible to the public. So as we get them and everyone within their corporation set up to very seamlessly purchase from us, that does take us a few weeks to do, but we are just like at the tail end of getting that ready for several institutions, for several huge corporate clients. And I could not be more happy with the direction of this company. And so I legit cannot wait to see what our sales end out with this month of June and to see what we pull in July, when not only do all of those big institutions close, all of those big companies close, we're also going to go to Pride, and we're talking to so many LGBTQ businesses and so many women-owned companies and so many cool male-owned companies too. Like, we love everyone. And in July, we have, you guys, the 1-year anniversary of Stickergate. Let's go. So something happened at Summit Series that I forgot can happen at events, because a lot of the events that I've been going to lately, they're a little bit more stated, they're a little bit more stuffy, they're a little bit more corporate. And Summit is the one that's a little bit more like Burning Man. If you want to take a hit on a joint when you're at Summit and you're walking down the street to the next event, that's probably going to be really available to you, especially in a state where weed is legal. If you want to hang out and have a cocktail with someone, they are right there. Generally speaking, I don't drink a lot at events like this because I like the connection. Usually I don't drink at all, but at Summit, I'll have a couple glasses of wine here and there with some people because we all just really like each other. And we're all just hanging out. And it also is an environment that fosters like more vulnerability, more sharing. And a lot of these attendees have been in this group for as long as I have. So some of us, we've known each other for 15 years. So it's like this great reunion of friends. And as I dove in and really came back into this company with like a whole lot of transparency of like, you guys, I've known you all for a long time and I really need help right now. I don't just need your business. I need you to tell other people that I am back and that I'm growing this company. And if they're getting stickers from anywhere, they should be getting stickers from us. And if they're not marketing with stickers, then they should be. And really, in this fun, very organic way, I'm rebuilding my businesses. And at this event, there kept being live Q&As. So Finea Rose, which I had not heard of before, was doing this like crazy boxing style debate event with Scott Galloway, Professor Scott Galloway from NYU, and Shermichael Singleton. And so Shermichael is like, oh, I'm in the middle. He says he's nonpartisan, but definitely leans a little bit more to a moderate Republican position, and Professor Scott Galloway, who is a Democrat. And so they have very different points of view on things, but certainly they had so much more agreement than anyone who is really radicalized on one side or another would believe is possible, but they did. And so I asked this question. I got up, I was like the second or third question, and said, hey, right now we collect $5.1 trillion in tax through the IRS annually. How would we recompensate that? If you were able in a no-holds-barred type of a way to rewrite the tax code, what structure would you give and how would you recompensate those taxes? And so the answers were good. They both had great answers, actually. And I have my own ideas of how I would recompensate all taxes, which I have thoroughly canvassed in other episodes. So there was a really unexpected Side effect, this was one of the most well-attended talks. I do not know how many people were in that room, but a very lot of people were in that room watching this very fun sort of back and forth boxing style debate. It was amazing. It was so much fun. And both of these men are sharp and smart and funny, and they're both like incredibly experienced public speakers. So they both did awesome. And so many people were there and they saw me ask this question. It was perfectly stated in the moment. I am not saying it now as well as I said it with a mic in my hand in front of a room of a couple thousand people, because that is fun for me to do. I do not have a fear of public speaking. Not only that is one of my superpowers, is being able to like go speak on a stage and sort of answer any question in real time or be pretty articulate about whatever I'm talking about in real time. I do not know where that comes from, but I am glad that that just always has been something that came pretty naturally to me. So every hour or two for the next couple of days that I was at that event, people came up to me like, oh my God, I loved your question and blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking of this. And it led into so many other cool conversations. And then I just happenstance right after that went to the question about psychopathy and CEOs. And you guys, I've had this, I know we're off in the weeds, but you're listening to my podcast, so this is fine. So I'm going to tell you a story from my childhood. I got to ask this question about head trauma and psychopathy because I feel like it goes without saying that I am actually not a psychopath, but I do test really high for psychopathy, as do many CEOs, for different traits of psychopathy, I should say, as do many CEOs. But I obviously also test high on empathy as well. Thank God. But I had all kinds of stuff going on in childhood, like I told you about, like the severe bullying and a lot of isolation. And then I also had a traumatic head injury when I was a kid. I was playing catcher in my cul-de-sac with I was the tomboy because I was like one of the only two girls in my cul-de-sac where there were tons and tons of little boys. And so I would just play with all of them. And we're playing baseball. And the guy hit the bat forward like as hard as he could and then swung backwards. And he was a kid that was like a couple years older than me and hit me. I still have a bump right on my forehead, hit me right in the center of the forehead, right in front of my frontal lobe, which literally, like, if you look at different serial killers and there are tons of psychopaths who are not serial killers, but the serial killers are the ones that are the most studied. Really often they have head injuries, and most particularly to their frontal lobe. So when we were in this room with these guys doing the psychopath workshop, I actually got to ask, I'm like, hey, what is it about a frontal lobe injury that makes you test higher in that way? And Jason Halpert, the expert there, who is a, special forces guy who went into studying really deeply psychopathy and became Dr. Halpert, answered my question in the most satisfying way. I really can't remember exactly what he said about it, but like it's a lot to do with like you have a way higher risk tolerance, slightly lower impulse control. So you're way more likely to be like, we're just going to go do this, and all the things to kind of watch out for. And it was super fascinating. But again, I had asked another question with a mic in a room of 1,000 people. And so the whole entire rest of the weekend, people kept coming up to me and knowing that I was there. And I wasn't doing this as a strategy, but I did remember like, oh, it's actually not a bad strategy to do in the future. Because then when I was in the comedy show, I also went up to my friend Ben Glebe and said, hey, you have never made fun of me, because he does not like to make fun of his friends. But if you pick on me during this comedy show, like, it would make my life. So he immediately calls on me, asks me what I do, does a very funny comedy skit about what I do in front of, a room of 1,000 people. It ended up starting so many additional conversations, which led to people who I am certain are going to become friends. Strategically, what I do after an event like this is host a potluck with all of the local people to Southern California where I live. And when I'm traveling, like I'm about to go to Chicago, I will pull together a little group for a dinner. When I'm in Chicago, I'll pull together a little group to go to dinner when I'm in Canada, of all of these people that are in these different groups. Like, why do I do that? Because then I know way more people, and not all these people are going to be my best friends, but they're going to become really good acquaintances. And all of their companies need stickers, and my companies need stuff that their companies do, like my friends over at X Team that do our web development. I've mentioned them several times. Or, friends who have a plumbing company or an electrical company or a distribution company or a blank t-shirt supplier or anything, or a marketing agency, or anything that it is that we might need in business. The better connected you are with other entrepreneurs, the way easier it's going to be to dive right in and find somebody who has what you need also. Because remember, we're just creating win-win-wins here. That's all we're doing. So I'm at Summit Detroit and I'm with my people again, and we're having like the best time, and the food is fucking ridiculous because they bring in all these Michelin star chefs. And I am just meeting with person after person after person after person after person who can help me with my company. So I'm up at lunch one day and it is just a mob scene. It's just crazy. And they're way out of the vegetarian food because they only had like 3 or 4 vegetarian dishes. And so they would get sucked up immediately. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's the food truck that I saw like on the big schedule. They have this app that tells you where everything is because Summit particularly always has the best food. It's all Michelin star chefs. Every Michelin star chef that I am friends with now, and I'm friends with a lot of them, is because Summit brings in Michelin star chefs to have the fucking best food of your life at their events. So I'm like, oh, there's this food truck called Waka and it serves East African halal food. And it's like down in this particular area. And I am psyched because I love all kinds of food. I haven't had a ton of exposure to East African food. So I'm like, let's go. Of course, I've eaten a lot of it, but not like a ton. So I'm like, let's go. It was so fucking good, you guys. It was like this pita with some beans and some eggplant. And that does not sound exciting, but the flavors were ridiculous. And when I go over there, I could see like, oh, this food truck is super segmented off to the side. Like people don't realize this is for us. There is no line. I didn't even know if they maybe weren't open yet. There are no people there. And when I tell you, people behave like ravenous creatures at these events. They are all over the food because everyone knows how good every bite of it's going to be. And I'm like, this looks like it's set up actually just for staff or just for the security or something. Doesn't look like it's for us, but it was for us. So I go over there and I'm the only person at all these outdoor tables that are set up to eat. So I start calling people over, but like nobody's coming over because it's a little bit far away from the walkway. Finally, one guy comes over and I can tell that he is on staff with this event. And he's like, oh no, actually, they hired me in to do this. I do a lot of big events. I don't believe I can say all of the events because I didn't ask him if I could say who he was, but huge fucking events. I think I can say, yeah, he does like the Emmys and the Grammys, does a lot of these big coordinated events. And then he also is a showrunner and was a producer on America's Next Top Model and The Circle and a ton of other shows. And I was just like, excuse me, the what? Hi. So I start telling him about the TV shows. Now, remember, you guys, I know I told you a couple weeks ago, I already have a meeting with one of my friends who is fucking enormous in the entertainment industry. So I know that I'm going to be able to get the right introductions through that friend. And we're having lunch next week. And I did say to May Fox, I was like, do you know, that's not that good of a story. I wonder how I'll actually end up getting the right introduction because I bet it's going to be a really good story. And then as I meet this dude at Summit, I start telling him about my show, the documentary and the TV show both. And I said, you know, I really want to get the right introduction over at these particular streaming services. He's like, oh, no problem. The guy over there in Unscripted is one of my homeboys. Like, I work with this person, no problem at all. Send me over a description of the show. I will be very happy to facilitate the introduction. I was like, thanks. Amazing. Just another serendipitous moment in the whole weekend of serendipitous moments. And the thing is, I was talking to Emily, who works for me, a while back, and she was like, well, the thing is about anybody who does something this big is that it's like they never state that there is just a lot of luck involved. And I burst out laughing. And I said to her, I am the luckiest person I know. Are you kidding me? Out of the clear blue sky, the biggest competitor on MySpace came out super pro Donald Trump. That dude just gave Donald Trump a $300,000 statue. So he just keeps going with it. And like, he has reasons of his own. He wants to be in politics. He has stated that very publicly. He ran for office for a little bit there. And so he has all kinds of aspirations. I have no idea what they all are, but good for him. And he just keeps going. I'm like, do you know how fucking lucky that is? That changed my whole business around. We are coming up on the anniversary of Stickergate. I legit cannot wait to see what our social media department comes up with for that. Wild. And now I'm just like at a food truck, just enjoying this savory, delicious, it's called Waka food truck. It's in Detroit. If you see it, go. It is the bomb. And this dude comes over and we start talking and he's like, it's yes. And then I was like, well, okay, cool. I actually need a producer for this show. So if you do that, like I totally will hire you to produce this show. And he's like, Andrea, this is such a good concept. And I give him the little, like, this is the 90-second pitch. Like, this is what we're doing. And I'm rebuilding all of the companies and I'm sharing my financials in real time. And I have this vision of releasing it week on week. So it'll maybe be like a week behind, but similar to the podcast, every single week a new episode will air for the next 5 years as we see the development of the companies grow, because I do not know how we're going to do exactly. I do not know exactly how we're going to do 500% growth per year, except for that I do. The year that we go from 10 million to 50 million, it will be because we had a TV show. How do I know that? Because my very good friend had a very big company and did a show and was doing $10 million in revenue. And that year that his show was on the air, that first year, he went from 10 million in revenue to 100 million in revenue. He did not have a customized product. It was easier to scale. And I've known a couple people that have done stuff like that, because the exposure, I mean, you see it just even with the Kardashians, the exposure of having people who watch everything you do, and then you're like, oh, and we're selling this thing. People buy that thing. And I imagine that's also how a really big part of how we'll get from 50 million to $250 million in revenue. And if I am lucky and I can negotiate it just right, and I can stand on one foot and hold my arm up in the air with a little piece of tinfoil at the end of my fork, then perhaps I will be able to convince the streaming service that we go with that I do not need to have an NDA in this process, and that I can actually very candidly talk about how we sell the TV show, how we then go figure out how the fuck to make a TV show, how I start a production company out of all of these ideas that I have for TV shows, and just show you like that the people that do that thing are the people that say, I am going to go do that thing. And there are so many people that are going to come across your path. I've had so many people in my life come across my path and tell me that I can't do something, or try and make me feel small, or try and make me feel like, who the fuck does she think she is? The degree to which I had that has been astounding. I'm going to talk a little bit more deeply about that on the Apprentice episode, because I was thinking like that it was the first time in my life when I'm like, I'm a really good salesperson and I'm really good at this and I'm really good at that. But that is not true. All the way up until I was on The Apprentice, that was just my natural set point. I expected my companies to be super successful, and they were. I expected sales to go super great, and they did. The degree of self-doubt that I overlaid upon myself between like 2008 and when I came back in the companies in 2023, from the outside, anybody would have said, whoa, you're such a fucking baller. You can't believe you've done all this stuff. This is so amazing. And the degree to which I was criticizing myself in the privacy of my own mind and retreating from the world, I almost can't even overstate it. It's embarrassing that it went on for so long, but it really did. So to be coming back into this place where I'm confidently like, it doesn't even matter that we haven't hit the number. It does matter. It deeply matters. We are correcting this very quickly. But it is totally okay that we are flat right now in our growth, because we're closing all of the things to very suddenly double our sales. And we have everything handled on the back end so that we can very suddenly double our sales. And with the rolling out of this Sticker Towers program, I mean, we should do $1 million in revenue just from the pre-made sticker towers in the first 2 years of having that program. And in the third year just of that program, it should be 4 million. In the fourth year of that program, that should be 10 million. And that is outside of the custom sticker sales that people upload their own artwork and make on the site. This is like featured artists making these stickers. And then all those artists, it falls under that same ethos that I keep talking about of, when I get rich, everybody around me gets rich. It's the easiest, fastest way to get rich. So right now, as I'm taking all these different calls with all of these amazing fucking dope artists, they're all going to get 10% of whatever I sell for them. And that starts at San Diego Pride next month. And we're also presenting a lot of their artwork to Hot Topic, to different chain stores, to different mom and pop stores. I am so excited to see how this program goes. I am hoping it knocks my own socks off with the sales. And that is happening at the exact same time that we're closing a bunch of new colleges, a bunch of new government agencies, a bunch of new companies, and taking on a bunch of new affiliates and offering them this dope ass affiliate deal where they get paid out for a couple years on the sales introductions that they give us. And they don't even got to babysit those sales. That is just for getting us introduced to the right person. So the sky is the limit for where we're going next with Sticker Wars. I can't hardly wait to report back into you on what we did in July. And as we're putting all these deals together, we're also hiring in someone new into social media. Our beloved Hayden is moving. We are so sad to see her go, but she'll still be involved with us in the company from afar. And as that happens and we have more hours of social media time, I am really going to lock in my own personal stuff so that I can actually be releasing content every day, because we are ready for a 5X expansion, and me getting an audience and people watching our journey and being like, whoa, how the fuck did you get this additional sales? We actually really want to know is going to really, really help that. And especially once we move from like 1D of me just talking about it to like showing you everything that's going on in the course of a week, really getting integrated and meeting the staff. I'm still going to do the podcast, but we're just on the brink right now of where all of the agreements are signed off on. So I can talk freely about the different companies that we're working with, the different institutions we're working with, the different affiliates that we're working with, the different huge clients that we're getting, and what's going on with every part of it. I'm giving you as much of a behind the scenes as I can right now, but it is about to get blown wide open. And so keep your fingers crossed that I am able to negotiate it to where I can show you the whole entire process as it happens, because it is going to be astounding to watch. I truly wish I had documented more of that first year. The slog of it, though, the boring parts of it, though, that all had to be here for us to be able to sprint right now, they were really important. They are not that interesting to watch. But now, the sprint of it now is all like super fun, very exciting things, and putting together huge partnerships with different big companies that start ordering from us and really integrating into a bigger and bigger and bigger way. And we're really, really hoping that we hit our targeted growth for July, August, and September, because if we do, everyone on my staff gets healthcare. And if we exceed that and actually do double our sales in July and maintain that in August, everybody gets healthcare and a raise. So I can't wait to tell you what happens, because we are on a really, really good path with it all right now. All right, that's it for this episode of Sticker Wars. Stay tuned next week as we give you another episode of The Apprentice, where I am project manager for the second time. Holy smokes, how does that go? I don't know. I guess you have to tune in next week to see. Join us next week on Andrea Lake 101, The Making of a Billionaire, where we do an apprentice episode. Grab your wine, grab your popcorn, and I will bring all of the tea.